12 entire universes, 8 of which had to fight for survival, with only one coming out on top. Or, well, at least it seemed that way at first. But which one is the strongest? Because the long-running anime franchise just didn't have enough characters already, Dragon Ball Super really dropped a bombshell on us all back in the day when it introduced the concept of a whole multiverse. Not only did the series already feature an afterlife, many distant galaxies and ancient space gods, but there were also a whole 11 other universes out there that we never even knew about. At least not until the King of All decided to do a little cleanup and let the 8 weakest universes duke it out in a massive battle royale to choose the one he wanted to keep alive. With loads and loads of characters all butting heads, we gotta ask ourselves which universes were really the weakest and which were the strongest. Well, according to the anime in this video, since things are fairly different in the manga. Okay, so they may not have been the first ones to get wiped out, we'll get to those guys in a moment, don't you worry. But when it comes to having a poor showing in the Tournament of Power, Universe 10 has to take the cake. Nobody on this team really got to put up much of a noteworthy fight aside from maybe Omni, with some even outright getting eliminated off screen. Even their 2 flyers, who you'd think would have an advantage in a tournament where nobody is allowed to use ki to fly, managed to get taken out way too fast. I mean, one of their flyers was the first one out in the entire tournament. But to be honest, it's really no wonder. Not only do the majority of them not seem to be capable of firing ki blasts, which is one of the most basic fighter techniques of the franchise, but Universe 10 was also where Samas came from. While he himself was definitely powerful and would probably never admit that any mortal could be remotely strong, he seemed to have some particular hang-ups about nobody in Universe 10 being stronger than even the weakest among the Kaioshin. And even if we ignore actual combat ability, they're just not really all that memorable, to be perfectly honest. I mean, can you really remember a single damn thing about any of them? I guess there was this bird guy and this butterfly girl, and I suppose that's kinda cool, but yeah, none of them really leave much of an impression. Curiously, they actually lasted pretty long in the manga, if only because Kale was entirely too busy tearing through everyone else to even bother with these guys. Yeah, I'm not so sure that's something to be proud of now that I think about it. Strictly speaking, Universe 4 probably is not all that much stronger than Universe 10 in terms of raw power, but they do have an edge on them due to being a universe seemingly composed entirely out of cunning tricksters. It's to the point where you might even argue that they're not really fighting fair at all, even if they technically aren't breaking any rules. I don't think it's a coincidence that this universe's god of destruction is a sneering little punchable looking yellow rat bastard. If it weren't for the sheer massive power gap between them and the other universes, they would likely have fared way better. After all, they do seem to have a knack for combining their different tricky abilities in neat ways. For example, Shansa and Damon took full advantage of mixing the former's ability to create illusions with the latter's minuscule size to cause a lot of trouble. And then there was their Kori's ability to move through shadows and Gamisala's essentially being invisible. There was some potential here. They do, however, ultimately serve as a punching bag for Roshi, who, while he is no doubt the weakest member of the Universe 7 team, actually gets to shine a bit for the first time since classic Dragon Ball. Using some of his own equally bizarre and sneaky techniques, he took out a fair chunk of them in what I personally consider to be a bit of a highlight episode. It's nice to see that the old coot can still wipe the floor with some overconfident youngsters. Here we go, there's the underdog universe. And no, I'm not just saying that because 3 of them are actual dogs. Coming from what they themselves refer to as a steaming trash heap of a universe where one has to be tough in order to survive at all, the lot of them, especially the Trio of Danger, have developed some impressive techniques that managed to give even our home universe of Universe 7 some trouble back in the Xeno Expo. It starts with things like poison and energy leeching and bulked up super forms just with the trio, but the rest have some interesting skills as well, like Hisab's Freeze Breath and Oregano's Web. And really, their whole survival of the fittest theme results in some fun animalistic looking characters that, if nothing else, certainly stand out a bit. And to give them credit where credit is due, they did score the very first ring out of the tournament in the anime when Basil beat Lilibo. Even if she's from the aforementioned and extremely unimpressive Universe 10, that has to count for something. But none of this changes that Universe 9 serves 2 very specific narrative purposes. For one, they exist to show how the mortal rating system works by placing them at the bottom of the ladder as a severely mismanaged universe. And 2, they're there to make it clear to the viewer that Xeno is not joking about erasing the losing universes when they turn out to be the first ones to go in a very sobering scene. This really was the moment where the seriousness of the situation started to sink in. Oh boy, here we go. Good old Universe 2. How do I even begin to describe this one? Every universe in the Tournament of Power has some kind of theme going for them, though it's certainly more pronounced with some than it is with others. So far, the themes of survival of the fittest, brawn, and trickery have mostly been something we could observe via shared quirks among the fighters in the team more than anything else. But Universe 2, and really the rest of the universes on this list, wear their inspiration on their sleeve to a much bigger degree. Universe 2 is, to put it bluntly, the magical girl universe, mercilessly lampooning the Japanese genre of superhero anime that includes series like Tokyo Mew Mew and Sailor Moon. Sure, Ribrianne and the rest of the hilariously named Maiden Squadron may look somewhat more, shall we say, gaudy and bizarre than the conventionally cute and frilly girls you'd expect from that genre, but come on. They're alternate universe aliens, what did you expect? As for the rest of the team, Picard in particular wouldn't look too out of place as a Sailor Moon villain of the week, and characters like Sarbuto, Rabanra, and Sirloin also have somewhat retro superhero, anime villain, and alien-looking designs to them. Really, if you're a little bit familiar with the tropes that surround this genre, this universe is a hoot. But don't let how entertaining they are or how early they were eliminated fool you. They can most certainly fight, at least in the anime. Or, well, the Maiden Squadron can. Especially Ribrianne. For as divisive a character as she is, personally I find her really entertaining, she absolutely gave us one of the highlights of the tournament with her battle against Android 18. Plus, I for one really enjoyed getting to see our blonde bionic bombshell cut loose after she got completely sidelined following the Cell games. And to think all it took for that to happen was a weird-looking alien girl wearing an even weirder Santa hat insulting her beloved husband. Now that is true love. And hey, going out with dignity and a smile when they did get eliminated definitely earns them a few points too. Since we've already talked about how the theming of each universe gets more obvious from here, Universe 3 stands out by being a team consisting of all sorts of sci-fi anime-style characters. We've got classically styled aliens, blob monsters, Power Rangers knockoffs, and a whole slew of robots that can combine into an even bigger robot, a la many giant robot anime. But the thing that makes them dangerous fighters is that they seem to be the universe that truly has the actual end goal of the tournament in mind, rather than just showing off their skills. That being survival. With their focus on simply outlasting opponents rather than necessarily beating them in a straight confrontation, they actually did manage to stay in the game for much longer than most would probably have expected at a first glance. This proved to be a vital strategy too, since about half of their team can fuse into a single, much stronger fighter. Bororeta, Koetsuka, and Panchia are able to combine and form into a giant robot whose name I'm not even gonna bother trying to pronounce, and this thing proved to be quite an obstacle. It was, after all, capable of tanking attacks from Ultimate Gohan and standing up to energy blasts from both Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta and Goku. And when that turned out to not quite do the trick, the mad inventor and team leader Dr. Paparoni somehow fused with his own robots, giving us the impressive Agni Lhasa. And this is where things really started getting tough for our remaining Universe 7 fighters. With a design that brings to mind a few of the non-canon DBC offshoot monsters like Hildegard, Janemba, and even freaking Hachiak, Agni Lhasa is so powerful that even his basic punches can mess with space around him, allowing him to teleport his attacks around as he pleases. Which made attacking him back very tricky. If it weren't for his painfully obvious exposed weak point and some of the other absurdly powerful contenders, Agni Lhasa may very well have been one of the biggest threats in the ring. Universe 6 baby, here they finally are. We haven't really talked about this in this video so far, but the 12 universes actually kinda come in pairs. Any pair of universes whose number adds up to 13 seem to be reversals of one another. For example, universes 10 and 3 are the traditional fighter and machinery universes, while 9 and 4 make up a brawn and trickery pair. You get the idea. And even if Universe 7, being our main universe, doesn't really have much of a theme, Universe 6 definitely does. Their theme seems to be inverting many of our universe's events and tropes. Where Universe 7 Saiyans were a powerful barbaric warrior race that nearly went extinct, the Universe 6 Saiyans are thriving and altruistic, but a fair bit weaker. Where Universe 7's humans are doing fine, despite a few apocalyptic events that got reversed by the Dragon Balls that is, they're the ones who are extinct in Universe 6. And Frieza's counterpart is... nah, he's still a total butthole, at least in the anime. He's just better at putting up a facade. Because he actually bothers to do so. And finally, where Universe 7's team is a hodgepodge of odd friendships, some following antagonistic first encounters, Universe 7's team doesn't seem to be too intimately familiar with each other, with a few obvious exceptions. However, they are definitely one of the universes that took the threat of the Tournament of Power the most seriously, and prepared themselves very well for the fight. Aside from taking the advice they got from the Universe 7 crew back during the preliminaries to heart and massively increasing their strength between appearances, they appear to also have spent quite a bit of time brushing up on strategies to work around their individual weaknesses. Or, well, they at least seem to have done a bit more planning than the more scatterbrained team we've come to know and love. And much like the Universe 7 gang, they are full of surprises. Caulifla and Kappa took to Super Saiyan transformations like ducks take to water, for instance. And Kale turning out to essentially be a Universe 6 version of the original movie Broly and absolutely wiping the floor with tons of fighters in her Berserker state was quite the sight. And we can't forget her and Cauliflower's fusion into the super powerful Kefla. They just won't stop pulling out a new ace whenever they get cornered. That sounds pretty similar to the Universe 7 crew. Also, they have hit. That certainly raises their power level a few notches, even if we all know that Dr. Rota is obviously the main powerhouse of the team. Universe 11. They have Jiren and Top. Do I really need to say any more about why they're so high on the list? Fittingly for the Twin Universe to Universe 2's frilly and girly superhero theme, Universe 11 takes their theme of being a send-up to Japanese franchises like Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman to a ridiculously awesome extreme. Although in terms of design, they all look more like the villains of said genre, which may serve as a bit of foreshadowing to their willingness to set aside their whole hero thing once the going gets tough, but that's a different discussion entirely. Anyway, every other universe's team, except maybe Universe 3 with its robots, is a somewhat ragtag group of incredibly powerful individuals coming together for the sake of their universe's survival. In some cases, even despite their differences. But Universe 11's team consists entirely of the members of an elite fighting force called the Pride Troopers. But being a team means more than just wearing matching snazzy uniforms, or suits when they're off the clock. They are also extremely well coordinated, experienced fighters, keenly aware of each other's strengths and weaknesses, with nearly every member having some kind of specialized role on the battlefield. And some of them do show off some very well rehearsed combo attacks and techniques, the likes of which we only rarely see from anyone else. Now, this is also kind of their weakness, since many of them are taking out with relative ease once the other fighters figure out how to bypass their gimmicks, but they're still no slouches when it comes to a straight up fight. However, the power distribution on this team is ridiculously unbalanced, and the reason they rank so high comes down almost entirely to Top and Jiren. With one being incredibly powerful in his own right, enough so to be a candidate for becoming his universe's next god of destruction, and the other serving as the ultimate final boss of the entire tournament, these two absolutely make for a force to be reckoned with. It's no wonder that the team's strategy was basically to keep these two away from battle so they could be used as trump cards at the very end. And it very nearly worked too. Oh, don't look so surprised to see Universe 7 up here. They won the tournament. They basically get this spot by default. But okay, no, I know that's not an acceptable argument, so hear me out here. It is absolutely true that if we measure strictly by the actual amount of power each team possesses, Universe 7 doesn't necessarily rank at the very top. Especially not against someone like Universe 11, considering how hard everyone had to work to take down Jiren. But if the Saiyan and Frieza arcs of the original Dragon Ball Z taught the viewers anything, it's that a person's value as a fighter cannot be strictly measured by numbers. Hell, as far as I'm concerned, that lesson is the entire point of introducing Scouters into the franchise to begin with. There's a reason the series basically stopped giving a damn about measuring power levels once the Android saga began. What has defined Dragon Ball, and by extension Universe 7 as a group since the very start, has been the potential for growth. Now, it is true that the franchise is notorious for benching several characters whenever a new threat arrives, which is something I'm not always super happy about myself. But that doesn't change that every time this group has come up against a foe much more formidable than themselves, they have managed to summon up some way of emerging victorious, and always sought out ways to continue growing stronger rather than growing complacent with their power. It's kind of telling that even characters that have gotten no action for a long time, like Tien and Roshi, were given chances to get a bit of a power boost and show their stuff against opponents that are more within their league. To me, this just proves that the problem was never that these characters were weak exactly, just that the playing field kept changing. Which of course only makes it worse that Krillin was taken out so early. Remember the Krillin that could give Piccolo a fright with his quick thinking and versatile key maneuvers? Yeah, I miss that Krillin. Anyway, Universe 7's strength in the face of adversity is unparalleled. And it's this strength, not their raw power, that makes them the strongest universe to compete in the tournament. At least in my eyes. But that still leaves 4 more universes that are even stronger. Or, well, we don't actually know if they are stronger exactly. They may have been exempt from the tournament based on their overall performance regarding mortal levels, but let's remember that that's not necessarily a measurement for combat strength. The mortal level refers more to how good of a job the respective gods of destruction have done managing their universes, weeding out the needlessly destructive species and ensuring their universes have the highest potential for productive growth. Still, it stands to reason that proper management of universes leads to stronger fighters, so simply for the potential to be even more impressive than the Tournament of Powers competitors, they deserve their spot at the top. Going by canon, universes 5, 8, 12 and 1 have the highest mortal ratings in that order, so we have to consider those the top 4 spots on the list for now. And whatever they're doing to score that high, I really hope we get to see what kind of fighters they have to offer someday. Until then, it remains a mystery. I just hope we actually get to visit some of these universes in the future. I know we got a few glimpses during the build-up, but come on! Aren't you at least a little bit curious what some of these universes are like and what other fighters might be hiding there? I know I am.